On this episode of the Fifth Down, we're going to be talking about Lamar finally getting paid, OBJ going to the Ravens, Aaron Rodgers getting traded finally, DeAndre Swift to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the rest of the draft reactions, winners and losers. Let's get to that intro music. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your co-host, Keone McKeague, and with me as always are my longtime friends and co-hosts, Nolan Chang, Jalen Holston. Say what's up to the pod, boys.
Bonjour.
How's it going, everybody? It's good to see you.
It has been a minute since I heard the actual song, so I was just like, okay, I forgot about this one.
Wavy AF.
That's a banger. Anyway, so we are here post-draft. For those of you who don't know, we are talking about the NFL draft today. First and foremost, how are you guys doing this week? Because it's been a minute since we joined up for this show.
It's been great. Good stuff. My voice is still gone from tournament yesterday, but we're here. We're live. We're doing it.
I can't wait to hear that story over on Team Huddle.
Oh yeah, you're. Woo!
You telling me I got a story for you guys?
Fired up.
It's like I got a story for you guys as well for this one. But anyway,
wonderful.
We're gonna throw it over to you first, Nolan, because
what's good?
Somebody finally getting signed. Excuse me. After what was just the longest, just ridiculous. I don't know what kind of negotiations these were, but they ended up paying the man exactly what he should have got in the first place, and they waited all of an entire year and a half to do so. So Lamar Jackson finally getting signed by the Ravens and being joined now by OBJ over in Baltimore. What do you think about, first and foremost, them signing Lamar, and on top of that, him kind of getting an added weapon in OBJ? Do you think that this kind of makes them title contenders next year?
I don't think it makes them title contenders. Obviously, I think a lot of that's also kind of pending on Lamar's health throughout the season. But I do think that...
And OBJ's health, I mean.
Yeah, OBJ as well. I mean, who knows? He's going to look like he hasn't played in a season and a half, right?
So 2 coins. Flip both. This is how that feels.
But yeah, I think nice that Lamar got his pay. Am I correct in when I heard that his mom helped with negotiations?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because up until this point, it's just been him basically negotiating for himself.
Yeah. Interesting. If he got that money now, he's got these next 5 years to prove that he deserves that money. I don't necessarily think that their team is much better than what they were last season. Yeah. But, good for him. He finally got the money he wanted. Not necessarily the money he deserves, but the money he wanted. And then OBJ is always going to be a nice receiver to kind of bolster that offensive line for him.
When healthy.
When healthy.
Anybody here going to be drafting OBJ next year?
Hell no. Hail to the no.
I don't know. That's why I think it's funny. Anyway, no. Jay, I saw you kind of react to first his mom negotiating his deal.
I'm just like, what? What? You're an adult. You're an adult man.
Clearly, he is.
It's like, hey,
my son put his body on the field for you.
That's exactly what the pitch meeting was. I swear to you, but nothing else. She walked in there and said, I know you ain't robbing my baby right now. He deserves all that money. And if you don't get it, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to find out where you live, and this purse going to make an appointment with your fucking cheeks. You understand?
I would love
That's exactly what happened.
I would love to have seen the video of that meeting just to see how it went down. Anyway, good for him. It took forever. But, I think, Nolan, you analyzed that perfectly, because it is a little ridiculous that, you take all that time and then you end up paying him the really ridiculous max anyway.
Good job, Ravens. You fucked.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, moving on.
Stupid.
Jay, I'm going to move it over to you, because we did have the other deal from your other favorite quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, finally getting dealt to the New York Jets. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts, first and foremost, on the trade, because essentially, for all intents and purposes, it was mostly like pick swaps, and then like maybe like one extra pick, and then Aaron Rodgers. So just throwing it over to you. What are your kind of thoughts on the deal and him finally being a New York Jet?
This is laughable. Okay. If you really think that an 80-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to all of a sudden travel to New York and be rejuvenated and be what he once was because their team is loaded, kind of, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. I'm sorry, New York. Like, your best times are still with Broadway, as it may be, and that's it. Like, no, Aaron Rodgers is not going to save your franchise. Literally, the most productive quarterback that you have had ever was Mark Sanchez, Mr. Bun Fumble.
Wow. Yeah.
That's saying something. You know what I mean?
That's a pretty good point. I was like, oh,
like, that's the last time the Jets were relevant enough to be talked about for an AFC championship or any kind of conference championship was when Butt Fumble was playing QB. I'm gonna let that sink in for you.
Typical USC.
Heisman winner. I mean, that is what it is.
That's not
but
the point.
I'm just saying. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is not going to do anything new. This is going to be a brand new version of what happened to Russell Wilson. Like, it's not. That's literally all this is. And honestly, Green Bay, you got fleeced, like bad, like real fucking bad. Okay, the Jets came out of this so far ahead as far as what they've got and what they wanted. And the Green Bay Packers got literally nothing when they should have asked for a king's ransom for what they thought is, or what he thinks he is, which is somehow a top quarterback in the NFL right now, and that is not the case.
What do you think about the stipulation they kind of threw on the trade, where so they have a second round going to them next year, but if it's
conditional
if he plays 60% of the snaps. What do you think about that? Like first and foremost, do you think that he's going to make it to that 60% mark? And also, do you think that is a worthwhile kind of addition? Because that's the first time I think I've seen any sort of contract like
it is
stipulation for a trade like that.
I think it's a cute little asterisk to put in there, but I also totally see a scenario where they're playing like dog shit and then Aaron Rodgers just quits just to fuck Green Bay even more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think this guy has any loyalty, because if he did, he wouldn't be so idiotic with how he operates with himself.
Yeah.
Basically holding a franchise hostage and not getting an assessment of Jordan Love because they weren't mathematically eliminated, to me, is just absolutely ridiculous, and that's not what leaders do. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a terrible thing for the Jets. They will be at best probably a 9-8 win ball club, but they're not going to go anywhere deep in the postseason if they even make it at all. And it's just going to be a giant waste of time and money. And we'll be sitting here talking about how Aaron Rodgers is still basically a complete piece of human garbage. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I got to say, it's pretty messed up of him to be literally cheesing like in a practice with
cheese.
See what you did there, Keone. You little rascal.
But I was just saying, like, literally the next day, he's over there, like, I think he's throwing passes to some of their receivers, and he's just smiling. And I'm just thinking, like, it's like I don't know, the demeanor that you had while you were in Green Bay for a state that just showed you absolutely every bit of love that they had. I don't know. It was a little messed up for me on a personal level to see him kind of doing that to a fan base that was just loyal to him, through and through. So anyway, Nolan, I'm throwing it over to you again, because from a fantasy perspective, you now have what is supposed to be a clear upgrade over, I almost forgot his name, Zach Wilson, in New York, right? Do you think that this kind of gives, because I will say this, last year it seemed like not a lot of people ended up actually drafting a lot of the Jets receivers because of,
I had Garrett Wilson, which was phenomenal for second half
which was
season.
And even that was kind of a late round draft pick. So now, do you think that this kind of puts those Jets receivers in sort of contention to be top or higher picks in this year's draft?
Just based off of the guys that he does have right now, he has Lazard, who is, I guess, familiar with him from Green Bay. I think I drafted Lazard in the later rounds, and he didn't pan out from the beginning of last season.
Yeah.
And I ended up dropping him. I might have actually picked up Garrett Wilson because I dropped him, but I don't necessarily think they're going to be top 10 receivers for sure. They're not really going to be anywhere close to that, but I guarantee they're going to get enough targets throughout the season. And, if depending on what type of system they're running and how Aaron Rodgers actually looks, if he's invested in the team, it may pay off. But overall, I think honestly, Garrett Wilson could take another leap this year because he was phenomenal last season. So he could kind of crack into that top 10. But right now, I wouldn't put any money on it.
It is kind of crazy because I kind of forgot that they also got McCole Hardman. So they have McCole Hardman, Alan Lazard. Now they have Garrett Wilson. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Jalen's favorite guy.
Yeah.
I love McCole. He just was never healthy. You know what I mean? Like, I love McCole when he was there, but your best ability is your availability. So if you're not there, I can't.
No.
I can't.
And I was with you on the train at the beginning of last season where we really thought that was going to be McColl's year.
I really did. Yeah.
And boy just didn't even get to play. So,
no. Nope. Messed up his groin, and that was it. Done.
I mean, legit, though, that shows just how phenomenal of a player Patrick Mahomes is for him literally not to have his number one guy and then just show out with Sky Moore, who just came in just out of nowhere.
He looked awful, and everyone hated him. And then he slowly got better and made some big character development moments in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
so full circle for that young man.
Super random question. I just wanted to throw over to you, Jay, because I thought this was something that I saw and I thought was very interesting. Where did the Kelsey brothers rank as brothers all time?
Probably number one because they're the most relevant set of brothers that have probably ever played the game. You know what I mean? I mean, Peyton and Eli, but I mean, come on.
There's like Peyton. I think I saw
like Peyton, Eli, and then it's Kelsey's,
the Watt
and then
brothers,
it's the Watts. But I think it's like in that order. It's probably Kelsey's, Manning's, Watts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny because I thought that was such a funny question that they were like debating on their show, and I was like, who are the top brothers of the NFL? I was like, that was an interesting question because there's a lot. There's like the Haywards now. I don't know. There's a few others anyway. Sorry, that was a super random question going off. But I know you guys didn't really get a chance to see much of the draft, but there were sort of a lot of changes that I think will affect us. One, for the NFL or fantasy draft. And then on top of that, there were a lot of moves made for a lot of offensive pieces. So that really pushed a lot of great defensive players and a lot of other, skill players down further into the draft.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, idiots.
I guess I'll throw it over to you, Jay, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really get to catch a lot of what the Chiefs drafted. Obviously, after like the first and second rounds, you're kind of just like waiting for the updates on your team for the rest of the draft. So, what was your kind of reaction to your draft overall, and kind of how your team ended up making out after it?
Dude, we did great in the draft. I feel like as far as exactly what, again, we trust in Brett Veach at this point. He is able to find some really great players. And like you said, everybody was all caught up in the stars and spectacle of offensive players like, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, whatever. The Chiefs understood that we need to keep building the young defense that we do have and let those guys get mentored by some of the veterans that we have still in the locker room. So we go out and we get Felix from Kansas State, fantastic edge rusher to hopefully be the opposite end of George Karlaftis, who had a phenomenal year last year. And then later on down the road, we get a great pick out of SMU with Rashee Rice. I think he's going to be kind of like a Sky Moore. I don't see him getting in the rotation a lot early on, but I do think maybe towards mid-season playoffs, he'll finally kind of come around, catch up with the playbook, and be somewhat usable for Patrick Mahomes. Plus, it's Andy Reid, so if there's a way to use him early, he'll probably find it. Give or take. And then we got a great offensive tackle. Like, we needed that because we got rid of Brown because of his amazing ego that was violently misplaced as to how good he was for the money he was asking. So we'll let another young guy sit there next to what is probably the best center in football, next to Kelsey. Just go from there. But our draft was phenomenal. Just got some great defensive pieces, picked up some really big pieces that we needed, like Wayne Morris and whatnot. But overall, another phenomenal draft from Brett Veach. He really hasn't had many misses, so we shall see.
Travis Kelce, the GOAT?
Oh, it's not even a question. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Not a question. Technically, wasn't drafted by Beach, but still, well,
Yeah. I thought it was really. Oh, you're.
I digress.
Yeah, I was like, I thought it was really cool that Shannon Sharp said that, like, went really out of his way to put Travis Kelce up there and say he is undoubtedly the GOAT. So,
Isn't it
Yeah,
nice
anyway.
when people who have finished the game respect
Just
those that are
like,
in the game?
In the game, yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
nice, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
great.
refreshing. Yeah, it's a little bit different. We don't normally see that often, especially not in the NBA. But anyway,
That's true.
swinging over to you, Nolan. I know that there were a lot of kind of big pieces that were moved or that were drafted in the sort of top half of the draft, especially from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, you had Bryce Young going first overall to the Carolina Panthers. You had C.J. Stroud going second overall to the Houston Texans. And then you kind of had, Will Levis again later on. He gets drafted by the Colts, or excuse me, not the Colts, the Tennessee Titans.
Titans.
Anthony Richardson ends up going to the Colts. With all of these sort of young quarterbacks getting put in there, do you think that there are any kind of standout guys from that core group of 4 guys that I just named that you think will be sort of, have like a better situation and maybe, possibly have a better like kind of fantasy standpoint next year?
I feel like Mills was pretty low mid on the
Yeah.
Texans, so I think
Mhm.
CJ Stroud is gonna be able to step in perfectly and probably take the reins pretty easily.
Yeah.
Bryce Young, he's gonna be with the Panthers. It could work out well. He's number 1 pick. He's an Alabama boy, so obviously,
Mhm.
it's kind of like that storied kind of quarterback thing going
But
on.
they did just lose their number 1 wide receiver, which was
Yeah,
sort of, yeah.
which hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure for me, I think CJ Stroud is the one that I think will be more notable this season,
Mhm.
just given what the situation is on the Texans and what he can
Yeah.
probably bring to them.
I know it's funny because outside of those guys getting drafted to pretty, great situations, we also had some wide receivers as well. Or excuse me, we had some of the top offensive weapons. So Bijan Robinson, the top running back in the
The
draft
Falcons,
this
right?
year, went to the Atlanta Falcons. So any chance that he
Algier's
goes in the
stock went
top-
down. Robinson's
Any-
stock going up.
Any chance he goes in the top 2 rounds this year for fantasy?
Um,
Would keep it a buck. I'm gonna say this. I was like, maybe just just for the people out there, let them know. You don't need to give away your draft strategy. I know we're all in competition here, but I'm just saying, like in general, do you think that he deserves a shot to be in those first couple of rounds because he is literally the offensive focus for the team
Yeah.
going into the next year?
Percentage of snaps and your usage plays a big part, especially on the Falcons, who are not really a great team coming into this next season.
Yeah.
I would say maybe a second or third round. Going with third round maybe. Just because I feel like, yeah, like you mentioned, he's going to be the focal point of that offense. So it's kind of hard to deny it.
I just like watch you have like number 11 of the draft and you end up taking him first round.
Oh God!
Just to throw everybody off.
Oh God! Don't say that.
Yeah, you never know. I mean,
Oh,
he is-
maybe.
Yeah, I was like, he is the number
Oh,
1 guy.
maybe.
Just saying. I was like, I don't know. Anyway, throwing it back over to you, Jay. Kind of our last segment here regarding the NFL draft, because there were essentially not really. I mean, there are now all basically AFC quarterbacks being, drafted this year,
Mhm.
or excuse me, NFC quarterbacks being drafted this year. They're not most of them are all NFC side. But now that we have a little bit more competition in the NFC side, even though the Eagles did sort of have themselves what was considered one of the better drafts this year because they did pull in a lot of the, championship winning Georgia Bulldogs. I'm curious to you. Do you think that there is a shot that next year we get a repeat of last year's Super Bowl? And if that is the case, do you guys take it again?
That's without a doubt, yes. But secondly, as far as the possibility of a repeat, I think it's possible, like unless the NFC actually gets some competition, because that was the thing that killed the Eagles in the Super Bowl, is that they play an entire year of not playing any relevant quarterbacks ever. And one of the ones that was kind of relevant in Aaron Rodgers literally just went to the AFC. So again, all the great quarterbacks are in the AFC. That is it. Period. End of story. I hope that Mr. Fields in Chicago, I think they had a pretty great draft, so hopefully they're more relevant and he's maybe another option that he actually has to duel with, you know? Maybe Dallas comes to their senses and gets rid of Dak Prescott and actually gets somebody that can throw the ball and manage their team and make reads, kind of like his backup did at a better rate while he was injured.
Cooper Rush.
Literally crazy that they were a better team statistically when he was QB. Just throwing it out there, you know? But yeah, I don't, you know, I don't see a route where anyone's really going to stop the Eagles from going back to the, you know, Super Bowl. But maybe in Washington, maybe my boy is going to get something cooking down there as the assistant head coach, OC, whatever you want to call it. We'll see what happens from there. But yeah, I do think a repeat is definitely possible. But yeah, but if it's round 2 again, we're winning. So that's just how that is. Sorry.
Oh, actually, I just realized last point. So now they did make the trade for DeAndre Swift. They obviously lost Miles Sanders? Yeah, Miles Sanders in the offseason. Now they have DeAndre Swift. Essentially, I'm pretty sure Miles Sanders went to the Lions. So I'm like 99% sure he went to the Lions, and then they got DeAndre Swift from the Lions. So
it's like not a trade, but it is a trade. So you know,
there's a weird. But anyway, what do you think about DeAndre Swift now with Philadelphia? And do you think that he's an upgrade or just kind of like
I think they're getting about the same player. They'll probably get the same amount of production. Again, it's literally it was a no-win trade, if that makes any sense. Like they're not losing anything because he can fill the same role, but they're also not gaining. It's not like an upgrade substantially either because they're both great players. You know what I mean? I feel it literally just they switched because the contracts were better for the other teams. So
it was a really
that
weird.
Was it.
I don't know. It was really weird for me to see that they traded for him because I was thinking like, I mean, Miles Sanders had.
Sanders went to the Panthers.
Oh, Panthers again. Okay, so it wasn't the Lions, but even still, it was like one of those. I was like, Miles Sanders had better production last year. He was, he knows the system. He was part of the team. I think they basically got like the same contract money wise. So I don't know. It was like a weird.
Sick of Carolina. Want to go up to Philly? That's TLDR. Trying to see some new places.
I guess Miles Sanders and Bryce Young. We'll see how that tandem ends up working out this year. Anyway, I think that'll do it for us here on this episode of The Fifth Down. It was a rather short one, but
quick hitter.
Throw in a little bit of our analysis for this year's draft. Anyway, we thank you for joining us on this episode of The Fifth Down. Boys, where can the people find you? Starting off with you, Nolan.
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at NolanKYT, NOLANKYT.
Bang, bang. And Jay, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at @ArtByJalen. You can find me on Twitter at Jalen Holston. You can find me on Twitch at MochaThanos_LGG.
Right on. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at Kayonee. That's KAYOHKNEE. And you can also check us out on Instagram at The Point and Soy Podcast for lots of cool reels and other stuff coming your way. Anyway, we thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Fifth Down. As always, it has been a pleasure. It's been a joy from all of us here at Point and Soy.
Good vibes and love, everybody.
Bang, bang.